Dr. Zara Williams pressed her trembling fingers against the lab report, the black ink blurring as tears she refused to shed gathered in her eyes. The words seemed to rearrange themselves on the page, as if her mind was desperately trying to rewrite reality. Positive, pregnancy test. Estimated conception, 6 weeks. 6 weeks ago, she'd been a virgin. 6 weeks ago, she'd volunteered for what she thought was a routine fertility study at Manhattan Memorial Hospital, a chance to earn $500 while helping advance women's health research. She'd signed the consent forms with careful, precise handwriting, trusting the pristine white coats and reassuring smiles of the medical staff. 6 weeks ago, her biggest worry was paying rent on her Harlem studio apartment while putting herself through nursing school. Now she was pregnant. And she had no idea how. The fluorescent lights in the hospital bathroom buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Zara stared at her reflection in the scratched mirror. Her dark skin looked ashen, her usually bright eyes hollow with shock. The pregnancy test sat on the sink beside her, 3 of them actually, because she'd been certain the first 2 were wrong. They weren't wrong. This can't be happening, she whispered to her reflection, but her voice cracked on the words. Deep down, she'd known something was different. The exhaustion that sleep couldn't cure. The way certain smells made her stomach lurch. The tender breasts she'd attributed to stress. Her phone buzzed against the porcelain sink, a text from her best friend Maya. Girl, where are you? You missed our study group again. How could she explain this? How could she tell anyone that she was somehow pregnant despite never having been intimate with anyone? They'd think she was lying, or crazy, or both. What do you think could cause a situation like this? Have you ever experienced something that completely turned your world upside down in an instant? Welcome back to the channel, my sweet and loyal family. Before we begin, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story, because tomorrow, I have another beautiful story to share with you and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now, let's continue. A sharp knock echoed through the bathroom. Excuse me? Are you okay in there? Zara quickly swept the pregnancy tests into her backpack and opened the door to find a concerned-looking nurse with kind eyes. I'm fine, Zara lied, forcing a smile. Just tired from my shift. The nurse studied her with professional concern. You look pale, honey. Maybe you should sit down for a minute. I'm okay, really. Zara pushed past her, desperate to escape the suffocating hospital walls. She needed air. She needed space. She needed answers. The October wind whipped through her scrubs as she stepped outside Manhattan Memorial, the same hospital where she worked nights as a nursing assistant to pay for school. The irony wasn't lost on her. The place that was supposed to heal people had somehow turned her entire life upside down. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Maya. It was an unknown number. Ms. Williams, this is Dr. Patricia Chun from Manhattan Memorial's Research Department. We need to speak with you urgently regarding your participation in our recent fertility study. Please call me as soon as possible. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs. They knew. Somehow, they knew she was pregnant, and they wanted to talk to her about the study. The study where they'd given her what they said was a routine injection of fertility hormones to help them understand ovulation patterns. With shaking fingers, she dialed the number. Dr. Chen speaking. This is Zara Williams. You texted me. A pause. Then, Ms. Williams, thank you for calling. I need you to come in immediately. There's been a situation regarding your participation in our study that we need to discuss. What kind of situation? Another pause, longer this time. Ms. Williams, I'd prefer to discuss this in person. How soon can you be here? I'm outside the hospital right now. Good. Come to the research department on the 7th floor. Ask for me specifically. The line went dead. Zara stared at her phone, her mind racing. Whatever had happened, it was serious enough that they needed to see her immediately. And given that she'd just discovered she was impossibly pregnant, the elevator ride to the 7th floor felt like it lasted forever. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished steel doors, a 24-year-old woman whose life had just taken a turn she never could have imagined. She thought about her mother, who'd raised her alone after Zara's father left when she was 3. Her mother who'd worked 2 jobs to put her through school, who dreamed of Zara becoming a doctor someday. What would she say about this? The research department was all glass walls and gleaming equipment, a far cry from the cramped nursing stations where Zara usually worked. Dr. Chun was waiting for her, a petite Asian woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and worried eyes. "Ms. Williams, please sit down." Dr. Chun gestured to a chair across from her desk, then closed the office door behind them. "I'm going to be direct with you because I believe you deserve the truth immediately." Zara's hands clenched in her lap. "What happened?" "6 weeks ago, when you came in for the fertility study, there was a mistake in our lab." Dr. Chen's voice was steady, professional, but Zara could see the distress in her eyes. "You were supposed to receive a hormone injection to stimulate ovulation for our research. However, due to a labeling error in our fertility clinic," the word seemed to echo from far away, "you were accidentally inseminated with donor sperm." The world tilted sideways. Zara gripped the arms of her chair, fighting against a wave of dizziness that threatened to pull her under. "I was what?" "The injection you received contained viable sperm from one of our fertility clinic's donors. Ms. Williams, I cannot express how sorry I am. This is a catastrophic error that should never have happened." Sperm. Donor sperm. Someone else's genetic material was growing inside her body right now, and she'd had no choice in the matter, no knowledge, no consent beyond signing up for what she thought was a simple research study. "Whose?" The word came out as barely a whisper. Dr. Chen hesitated. "That's complicated. The donor has a right to privacy, but given the circumstances, we may need to involve legal counsel to determine how to proceed." "No." Zara stood up so fast the chair rolled backward. "No, you don't get to make decisions about my body anymore. You've done enough." Her voice was getting louder, months of suppressed anger at the world's unfairness finally finding a target. "I want to know whose sperm is inside me. I want to know everything about this donor. And I want to know how you're going to make this right. Ms. Williams, please understand that this is an unprecedented situation." "Unprecedented?" Zara's laugh was hollow, bitter. "That's what you call accidentally getting someone pregnant without their consent? Unprecedented." Dr. Chen winced. "You're absolutely right to be angry. We take full responsibility for this error, and we're prepared to cover all medical expenses related to your pregnancy, as well as discuss other forms of compensation." Compensation. Zara stared at her. "You think money fixes this? I'm 24 years old. I'm in nursing school. I work nights to pay rent, and I've never even—" She stopped, her cheeks burning with embarrassment. "This isn't something you can just throw money at and make go away." The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of irreversible change. Finally, Dr. Chun spoke quietly, "The donor is Adrian Blackwood." Even Zara, who didn't follow business news or society pages, recognized that name. Adrian Blackwood, tech billionaire, philanthropist, one of the youngest people ever to make the Forbes list. His face had been on magazine covers. His company's logo was on half the apps on her phone. "The billionaire," she said flatly. "Yes. He's been a donor in our fertility program for 3 years. Very generous, very committed to helping couples who struggle with infertility." Dr. Chen paused. "Ms. Williams, Mr. Blackwood doesn't know about this situation yet. We wanted to speak with you first." Zara sank back into the chair, overwhelmed. Not only was she pregnant without consent, but the father was one of the most powerful men in the country. A man who lived in a world so different from hers it might as well be another planet. "I need time to process this," she said finally. "Of course. But Ms. Williams, we'll need to inform Mr. Blackwood soon. He has a right to know, and legally." "Legally, I have rights too." Zara stood again, this time steadier. "I need to talk to a lawyer before anyone contacts him. This is my body, my life, and I won't let anyone, not you, not him, not anyone, make decisions about my future without me." Dr. Chen nodded slowly. That's very wise." As Zara walked toward the door, Dr. Chen called after her, "Ms. Williams? For what it's worth, I truly am sorry. This should never have happened." Zara paused at the door but didn't turn around. "You're right. It shouldn't have. But it did. And now I have to figure out how to live with the consequences of your mistake." The elevator doors closed behind her, and Zara leaned against the wall, finally allowing the tears to fall. In the span of an hour, her entire life had changed. She was carrying the child of a man she'd never met, A pregnancy that had begun not with love or choice, but with medical negligence. But as she pressed her hand to her still flat stomach, she felt something unexpected stirring alongside the fear and anger, a fierce protective instinct she'd never experienced before. Whatever happened next, whatever complications lay ahead with Adrian Blackwood and his billions and his different world, she would face it. She'd survived growing up poor, survived her father's abandonment, survived working nights while going to school. She would survive this too. Adrian Blackwood was in the middle of a board meeting when his world shifted on its axis. His phone had been buzzing insistently for the past 10 minutes, unusual, since his assistant knew better than to interrupt unless someone was dying. The irony of that thought would hit him later. "Excuse me," he said to the 12 executives seated around the mahogany conference table in his Manhattan penthouse office. "I need to take this." He stepped onto his private balcony, 40 floors above the city that never slept, and answered the call. "Mr. Blackwood, this is Dr. Patricia Chun from Manhattan Memorial Hospital. We met when you enrolled in our donor program." Adrian's jaw tightened. He'd been very specific about anonymity when he'd started donating 3 years ago. After watching his best friend struggle with infertility, he'd wanted to help couples who couldn't conceive naturally, but he'd made it clear that his involvement was to remain completely private. "Dr. Chun, I thought we had an agreement about." "Mr. Blackwood, there's been a situation that requires your immediate attention. Can you come to the hospital today?" Something in her tone made his breath catch. "What kind of situation?" "I'd prefer to discuss this in person, but there's been a mistake involving one of your samples. A young woman is pregnant, and she wasn't supposed to be." The city stretched out below him, millions of lights twinkling in the gathering dusk, but Adrian suddenly felt like he was falling. "What do you mean, she wasn't supposed to be pregnant?" "She was participating in a fertility study. She should have received hormones, but due to a labeling error in our clinic, she received your sample instead. Mr. Blackwood, she was artificially inseminated without her knowledge or consent." Adrian closed his eyes, leaning against the glass railing. In his 32 years, he built a tech empire worth $8 billion, navigated hostile takeovers, survived public scandals that would have destroyed lesser men. But this? This was uncharted territory. How is she handling this? About as well as you'd expect someone to handle discovering they're pregnant without ever having been intimate with anyone. The weight of that statement hit him like a physical blow. Some innocent woman's life had been turned upside down because of his genetic material. Because he tried to do something good, something private, something that was supposed to help people. "I'll be there in an hour," he said. Adrian ended the call and stood on the balcony for a long moment, watching the city pulse with life below. Then he walked back into the conference room, where 12 of the most powerful executives in tech were waiting. "Gentlemen, we'll need to continue this meeting tomorrow. Something's come up." 20 minutes later, Adrian was in the back of his black Tesla, speeding through Manhattan traffic while his mind raced. He'd built his fortune on solving problems, on turning chaos into order. But how did you solve accidentally getting someone pregnant? His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Dinner Sunday? Haven't seen you in weeks." Sunday dinner. Normal family obligations. A world away from the complicated mess he was about to walk into. Manhattan Memorial Hospital was nothing like the private medical facilities Adrian usually frequented. The lobby was crowded, fluorescent lit, filled with people who looked like they'd been waiting for hours. It was a reminder of a world he'd left behind when his first app sold for $20 million. A world where people waited, where they didn't have choices, where mistakes like this probably happened more often than anyone wanted to admit. Dr. Chun met him on the 7th floor, her professional composure barely masking what looked like exhaustion. "Mr. Blackwood, thank you for coming so quickly." "Where is she?" Adrian asked without preamble. "She left earlier today. She was, understandably, upset. She's asked for time to process the situation and consult with legal counsel before meeting with you." Legal counsel. Of course. Adrian's first instinct was to call his own team of lawyers, to protect himself, his company, his reputation. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the memory of Dr. Chen's words. She was artificially inseminated without her knowledge or consent. "What's her name?" "Zara Williams. She's 24, a nursing student. She works here part-time as a nursing assistant." Dr. Chen paused. "Mr. Blackwood, she comes from a very different background than yours. This situation is going to be overwhelming for her in ways you might not immediately understand. Adrian nodded slowly. He'd grown up poor himself, before the tech boom changed everything. He remembered what it felt like to have your life controlled by forces beyond your influence, to feel powerless against institutions and people with more money, more connections, more options. "I want to meet her," he said. "But I want her to feel safe. No lawyers, no pressure. Just a conversation between two people whose lives just got incredibly complicated." Dr. Chen looked surprised. "That's very considerate of you. Can you arrange it?" "I can ask. But Mr. Blackwood, you should know, she's not going to be impressed by your money or your status. If anything, it might make things harder. She's already feeling powerless. The last thing she needs is to feel like she's being managed by someone with more resources than she could ever dream of." Adrian absorbed this. In his world, money solved problems. In Zara Williams's world, apparently, it might create them. "Then I'll have to prove I'm more than just my bank account," he said. 3 days later, Zara sat in a small cafe in Harlem, nervously stirring her coffee and checking her phone every 30 seconds. She'd agreed to meet Adrian Blackwood after her lawyer, a kind woman who'd taken her case pro bono, had assured her that she was under no legal obligation to do anything she didn't want to do. But curiosity had gotten the better of her. She needed to see the man whose genetic material was growing inside her body. She needed to look him in the eye and try to understand how two people from completely different worlds were supposed to navigate this impossible situation. She'd expected him to choose the meeting place, some fancy restaurant in Manhattan where a cup of coffee cost more than she spent on groceries in a week. Instead, he'd asked her to pick somewhere she felt comfortable. So here she was, in Mama's kitchen, a cafe where she'd been coming since high school, surrounded by the familiar sounds of her neighborhood, waiting to meet one of the richest men in America. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to meet someone who held power over your future? How did you prepare yourself mentally? When Adrian Blackwood walked through the door, every conversation in the cafe stopped. He was taller than she'd expected from the magazine photos, with dark hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it and green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. He was wearing jeans and a simple gray sweater, expensive she could tell, but not flashy. An attempt to blend in that almost worked, except for the way he carried himself, the quiet confidence that came from never having to question whether you belonged somewhere. Their eyes met across the crowded cafe, and something electric passed between them, recognition, maybe, or just the surreal acknowledgement that they shared the most intimate connection two people could share without ever having touched. He approached her table slowly, as if he were trying not to spook a wild animal. "Zara." She nodded, not trusting her voice. Up close, he was even more striking, the kind of handsome that made you forget to breathe. But it was his eyes that caught her off guard. She'd expected coldness, calculation, the look of someone who saw people as problems to be solved. Instead, she saw something that looked like genuine concern. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," he said, sliding into the booth across from her. "I know this can't be easy." "Easy." Zara found her voice, and with it, some of her anger. "No, having a stranger's baby growing inside me without my consent isn't exactly easy." Adrian winced. "I'm sorry. That was a stupid thing to say." Yeah, it was. But some of the tension left her shoulders. At least he wasn't going to pretend this was anything other than a complete disaster. The waitress, Mrs. Rodriguez, who'd known Zara since she was 16, appeared at their table with obvious curiosity. "The usual, honey?" she asked Zara, then turned to Adrian with barely concealed surprise. "And for you?" "Coffee black, please," Adrian said, offering Mrs. Rodriguez a smile that made the older woman blush. When they were alone again, silence stretched between them. Zara studied his hands, long fingers, no wedding ring, a scar across his left knuckle that looked old. Hands that had never known physical labor, but somehow didn't look soft. "I don't know how to do this," Adrian said finally. "I've never been in a situation like this before." "Join the club." Zara wrapped her hands around her coffee mug, needing something to hold on to. "Although I'm guessing most of your problems can be solved with money." "Most of them, yes." His honesty surprised her. "But not this one. Money can't undo what happened to you. It can't give you back your choice." Something in his voice made her look up sharply. He wasn't looking at her with pity or calculation. He was looking at her like she was a person whose life mattered, whose pain was real and significant. "No," she said quietly. "It can't. But it can make things easier going forward. Medical care, financial support, whatever you need." "Stop." Zara held up her hand. "I didn't come here to negotiate a settlement. I came here because—" She paused, struggling to put it into words. "Because you're going to be connected to me and this baby for the rest of our lives, whether we like it or not. I wanted to see who you are." Adrian leaned back, studying her with those unsettling green eyes. "And what do you see?" "I don't know yet." She was quiet for a moment. "You're not what I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone more." She waved her hand vaguely. "Entitled. Arrogant. Someone who would try to take control of the situation immediately." "The thought crossed my mind," Adrian admitted. "I'm used to being in control. But this isn't about me, is it? This is about you, and what happened to you, and what you want to do about it." The sincerity in his voice did something dangerous to her defenses. She'd prepared for battle, for condescension, for someone who would try to manage her like a business problem. She hadn't prepared for someone who seemed genuinely concerned about her well-being. "I don't know what I want to do," she admitted. "I've been pregnant for 6 weeks, and I found out 3 days ago. I haven't had time to think about anything beyond trying not to panic." "Are you panicking?" "Every minute of every day." The words slipped out before she could stop them, and she saw something shift in his expression. "What can I do to help?" The question was so simple, so genuine, that it nearly undid her. When was the last time someone had asked her that? When was the last time someone with the actual power to help had cared enough to ask? "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know anything right now." Adrian reached across the table, slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he covered her hand with his. His skin was warm, and there was something comforting about the contact that she didn't want to examine too closely. "We'll figure it out," he said. "Together. One step at a time." Zara stared down at their joined hands, his pale against her darker skin, his expensive watch next to her hospital ID bracelet. Two people from different worlds, connected by the most unlikely circumstances imaginable. "Why are you being so nice to me?" she asked. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. "Because 3 years ago, my best friend and his wife went through hell trying to have a baby. I watched them suffer through failed treatments, miscarriages, the whole nightmare of infertility. When I decided to donate, it was because I wanted to help people like them. I never imagined—" He trailed off. "That someone would get pregnant by accident. That someone would get hurt because of something I did to try to help." His thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it made her chest tight. "I'm responsible for this, Zara. Maybe not legally, but morally. You didn't choose this, but I'm part of it now. That makes your well-being my responsibility." The protectiveness in his voice sent an unexpected warmth through her. She pulled her hand away, disturbed by how right it had felt to have him touch her. "I'm not your responsibility," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Maybe not. But I'd like to help anyway." They sat in silence, the weight of the impossible situation settling between them. Outside, Harlem continued its rhythm. Kids walking home from school, vendors calling out their wares, life continuing as if the world hadn't just shifted fundamentally for two people in a corner booth of Mama's kitchen. "I should go," Zara said finally. "I have class tonight." "Nursing school." She nodded. "Pediatric care. Ironic, right?" Adrian didn't smile at the joke. "How long until you graduate?" 8 months. If I can manage to finish while dealing with—" She gestured vaguely at her stomach. "You'll finish," Adrian said with surprising certainty. "You're stronger than you think." "You don't know me well enough to say that." "Maybe not. But I know you came here tonight instead of hiding. I know you're asking the right questions instead of just accepting what happened to you. That takes strength." Zara stood up, suddenly needing distance from his perception, from the way he seemed to see qualities in her that she wasn't sure she possessed. "This is complicated," she said. "Yeah." Adrian stood too, and she was reminded again of how tall he was, how his presence seemed to fill the small space around their table. But complicated doesn't mean impossible. As they walked toward the door, Mrs. Rodriguez caught Zara's arm. "You okay, Mija?" she asked in Spanish, shooting a suspicious look at Adrian. "I'm fine, Mrs. Rodriguez. Just working through some things." The older woman studied Adrian for a moment, then nodded slowly. "He seems like a good man. But you be careful, okay? Men with money, they're not always what they seem." Adrian, who apparently understood Spanish, offered Mrs. Rodriguez a rueful smile. "She's right to be careful," he said in perfect Spanish. "But I promise you, my intentions toward Zara are honorable." Mrs. Rodriguez looked surprised, then pleased. "Bueno. See that they stay that way." Outside the cafe, the October air was crisp with the promise of winter. Adrian walked Zara to the subway station, neither of them speaking but both hyper-aware of the other's presence. "Can I see you again?" Adrian asked as they reached the entrance. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Probably not," he agreed. "But I'd like to anyway." Zara studied his face in the glow of the streetlights. There was something happening between them, something that had nothing to do with the pregnancy, with the circumstances that had brought them together. Something that felt dangerous and inevitable all at once. "I'll think about it," she said. As she disappeared down the subway steps, Adrian stood on the sidewalk for a long time, watching the place where she'd vanished. For the first time in years, he'd met someone who looked at him and saw not his net worth or his influence, but simply a man. Someone who challenged him, who didn't defer to his wealth or his power. Someone who was carrying his child. And despite the impossibility of their situation, despite the gulf between their worlds, he found himself wanting to see her again more than he'd wanted anything in a very long time. 2 weeks passed before Zara saw Adrian again, but he was never far from her thoughts. He'd been texting her, nothing pushy, just small check-ins that somehow managed to brighten her increasingly difficult days. "How are you feeling? Did your morning sickness get better? Saw an article about your nursing program. Sounds incredible." She told herself she was only responding to be polite. She told herself the flutter in her stomach when she saw his name on her phone was just pregnancy hormones. She told herself a lot of lies during those 2 weeks. The truth was harder to admit. She was falling for a man she barely knew, under circumstances that should have made any romantic feelings impossible. The truth caught up with her on a Thursday night when everything fell apart at once. Zara was in the middle of her pediatric care practicum, trying to comfort a crying infant whose mother was in surgery, when the nausea hit her like a freight train. She barely made it to the staff bathroom before she was violently sick, her body rejecting the granola bar she tried to eat for dinner. When she emerged, pale and shaking, her supervisor was waiting. "Williams, you need to go home," Nurse Patterson said, her voice not unkind but firm. "This is the 3rd time this week you've had to leave your station." "I'm fine," Zara protested, though she was clearly anything but fine. "It's just a stomach bug." "A stomach bug that's lasted 2 weeks?" Nurse Patterson's experienced eyes missed nothing. "Zara, honey, I've been doing this for 25 years. I know morning sickness when I see it." The words hung in the air between them. Zara felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling. "I can still do my job," she said weakly. "Not like this. Go home. Take care of yourself. We'll discuss your schedule when you're feeling better." The subway ride back to Harlem was a blur of tears and panic. Her part-time job at the hospital wasn't just income, it was required clinical experience for her nursing program. If she couldn't perform her duties, she could lose both her job and her chance at graduating. By the time she reached her tiny studio apartment, the panic had transformed into something closer to despair. She sat on her second-hand couch, staring at the stack of unpaid bills on her coffee table, calculating how long her meager savings would last if she lost her job. The answer was, not long. Her phone buzzed. "Adrian, how was your day?" Without thinking, she called him. "Zara." His voice was warm, concerned. "Are you okay?" "No." The word came out as a sob. "I'm not okay. Nothing is okay." "Where are you?" "Home." "But Adrian, you can't." "What's your address?" She shouldn't give it to him. She should handle this alone, the way she'd handled everything else in her life. But the exhaustion was bone deep, and for once, she didn't want to be strong. She gave him her address. 20 minutes later, there was a soft knock on her door. When she opened it, Adrian stood in her narrow hallway holding a bag from the pharmacy and wearing an expression of such genuine concern that it nearly undid her completely. "Hi," he said softly. "Hi." She stepped aside to let him in, suddenly acutely aware of how small her apartment was, how different his world must be from this cramped space with its second-hand furniture and peeling linoleum. But Adrian didn't look around with judgment or pity. He set the pharmacy bag on her counter and turned to her with the same focused attention he'd given her in the cafe. "Tell me what happened." So she did. Everything spilled out, the morning sickness getting worse, having to leave work, her supervisor's concerns, the fear that she was going to lose everything she'd worked for. Adrian listened without interrupting, his presence steady and calming in her chaotic world. "I brought some things that might help," he said when she finished, gesturing to the pharmacy bag. "Ginger tea, crackers, those pregnancy vitamins that are supposed to be easier on your stomach. I did some research." "You did research on morning sickness?" "I did research on everything." He looked almost embarrassed. "Pregnancy symptoms, nutrition, what to expect in the first trimester. I figured if I'm going to be part of this, I should understand what you're going through." Something warm unfurled in Zara's chest. When was the last time someone had taken care of her like this? When was the last time someone had thought to research how to help her? "Thank you," she whispered. Adrian moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive but not overwhelming. "Zara, about your job. I could talk to the hospital administration." "No." She stepped back, the warmth instantly replaced by wariness. "I don't want your money or your influence. I want to earn my place. Even if it means struggling unnecessarily. Especially then." She crossed her arms, trying to rebuild the walls that his kindness kept dismantling. "I've been taking care of myself since I was 18. I don't need a billionaire swooping in to fix my problems." "What if I'm not trying to fix your problems?" Adrian asked quietly. "What if I just want to help someone I care about?" The words hung between them, loaded with implications neither of them was quite ready to examine. "You barely know me," Zara said, but her voice lacked conviction. "I know enough." Adrian moved closer again, and this time she didn't back away. "I know you're determined and proud and stronger than you give yourself credit for. I know you make me laugh. I know you challenge me in ways no one has in years. I know that when you smile, really smile, it changes your whole face." "Adrian." She could barely breathe. He was standing so close now that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes, could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "I know that what's happening between us is completely insane," he continued, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "We shouldn't even like each other. We're from different worlds. We met under impossible circumstances. Every rational part of my brain is telling me to walk away." "Then why don't you?" "Because I can't." His hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. "Because from the moment I saw you in that cafe, nothing else has mattered as much as making sure you're okay. What would you do if someone you barely knew was offering to completely change your life? Would you be brave enough to take that leap of faith?" The admission hung in the air between them, raw and honest and terrifying. Zara closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite every instinct telling her to run. "This is crazy," she whispered. "I know. We could both get hurt. Probably. I don't know how to trust someone like you. Someone with so much power." Adrian's thumb stilled against her cheek. "What do you mean?" Zara opened her eyes, meeting his gaze directly. "You want to know a secret? Something I've never told anyone." He nodded. "When I was 8, my mom was cleaning houses for this wealthy family in Manhattan. The Vandenbergs. Mrs. Vandenberg was always kind to me when my mom brought me along during school breaks. She'd give me books, let me use their library, tell me I was smart and could be anything I wanted to be." Adrian waited, sensing there was more. "One day, Mrs. Vandenberg's daughter came home from college and found me reading in their library. She saw this little black girl from Harlem sitting in their expensive chair, touching their expensive books, and she lost her mind. Called me names I won't repeat. Told her mother I was probably stealing. Had my mom fired on the spot." Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. Mrs. Vandenberg didn't even defend us. This woman who'd been so kind, who'd made me believe I mattered, she just stood there and let her daughter humiliate us. Because when it came down to it, we were disposable. We were the help. Zara. I swore that day I would never let anyone have that kind of power over me again. I would never trust someone whose world was so different from mine that they could destroy my life without consequence. She looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. But here I am, carrying your baby, letting you into my apartment, letting you make me feel things I swore I'd never feel. The vulnerability in her confession hit Adrian like a physical blow. He understood now why she'd been so guarded, why his wealth and status were barriers rather than assets in her eyes. I'm not them, he said quietly. How do I know that? How do I know that when things get complicated, and they will get complicated, you won't just disappear back to your world and leave me to deal with the consequences? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, processing her words, her pain, the weight of what she was asking him. Then he did something that surprised them both. He sat down on her couch and started talking. I grew up in a trailer park in Ohio, he said. My dad left when I was 7. My mom worked 3 jobs, cleaning offices at night, waitressing during the day, taking in laundry on weekends. We had food stamps and secondhand everything, and I wore the same pair of sneakers until they had holes in the soles. Zara stared at him, this man in his expensive clothes talking about food stamps. When I was 15, I got a scholarship to a private school. Full ride, but I had to work in the cafeteria and clean classrooms to pay for books and supplies. The other kids, they made sure I knew I didn't belong. Called me trailer trash, made jokes about my mom's job, excluded me from everything that mattered. He looked up at her, and she could see the echo of that teenage boy in his eyes. I swore I'd never be powerless again. Never let anyone look down on me because of where I came from. So I worked harder than everyone else, saved every penny, built something that no one could take away from me. He paused. But success doesn't erase where you came from. It doesn't make you forget what it feels like to be dismissed, to be seen as less than. Zara sank onto the couch beside him, studying his profile. Is that why you donated sperm? Because you remembered what it felt like to need help? Partly. Adrian turned to face her. But mostly because I know what it's like to want something desperately and not have the power to make it happen. My mom wanted to give me everything, but she couldn't. My friend wanted to have children, but biology wouldn't cooperate. Sometimes people with resources have an obligation to help when they can. And now I want to help you. Not because I see you as a charity case or a problem to be solved, but because... He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. Because you matter to me. More than I expected. More than is probably wise. The honesty in his voice, the warmth of his hand in hers, the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world, it all combined to crack something open inside her chest. I'm scared, she whispered. Of me. Of this. Of feeling this way about someone I barely know. Of trusting you and being wrong. She looked down at their joined hands. Of what happens when your world and mine collide. What if we create our own world? Adrian asked softly. What if we figure this out together, without worrying about where we came from or what other people expect? Zara met his eyes, seeing hope and fear and something deeper reflected there. Is that possible? I don't know. But I'd like to try. The space between them seemed to shrink until they were breathing the same air, until the rest of the world faded away and there was only this moment, this choice, this terrifying leap of faith. Adrian, she breathed. Yeah. I think I'm falling for you. His smile was soft, transformative. Good. Because I'm already gone. When he kissed her, it was gentle, reverent, like he was afraid she might disappear. Zara melted into him, her hands fisting in his sweater, pulling him closer. The kiss tasted like promises and possibility, like hope in the face of impossible odds. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I have something I need to tell you, he said. What? I've never felt this way about anyone before. Never wanted to protect someone, to be better for someone, the way I do with you. His thumb traced her lower lip. It terrifies me. Join the club. They sat in comfortable silence, wrapped around each other on her second-hand couch, the pregnancy and their different worlds and all the complications temporarily forgotten. For this moment, they were just Adrian and Zara, two people who'd found something unexpected and precious in the middle of chaos. "Promise me something," Zara said eventually. "Anything. Promise me that whatever happens, with the baby with us, with all the craziness that's coming, you won't just disappear. Promise me you'll fight for this." Adrian pulled back to look at her, his expression serious. "I promise. Whatever comes, we face it together." It was a promise that would be tested sooner than either of them could imagine. As they held each other in the dim light of her apartment, neither of them noticed the black sedan that had been parked across the street for the past hour, or the telephoto lens pointed at Zara's window. By morning, their secret would be front-page news, and their carefully constructed bubble would shatter completely. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And for the first time since this all began, that felt like enough. The next 3 weeks were the happiest of Zara's life. It started small, Adrian bringing her ginger tea every morning before her classes, staying to make sure she could keep breakfast down. Then it became coffee dates between her shifts, long walks through Central Park where they talked about everything and nothing. Then dinners at small restaurants where no one recognized him, where they could just be two people falling in love. "You don't have to do this," Zara said one evening as Adrian helped her study for her pediatric pharmacology exam. They were spread across her living room floor, surrounded by textbooks and flashcards, her head in his lap as he quizzed her on drug dosages. "Do what?" His fingers combed gently through her hair, and she had to fight not to purr like a cat. "Take care of me. Stay here instead of going to whatever billionaire things you usually do." Adrian looked down at her, his expression soft. "What if I told you this is exactly where I want to be? I'd say you need to get out more." He laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. "Zara Williams, in the past 3 weeks, you've made me laugh more than I have in the past 3 years. You've made me remember what it feels like to be excited about something other than quarterly earnings. You've made me." He paused, his hand stilling in her hair. "You've made me happy." The simple honesty of it made her chest tight. "Adrian. I'm serious. I wake up thinking about seeing you. I go to sleep thinking about making you smile. I've restructured my entire schedule around your morning sickness patterns." He grinned. "My assistant thinks I've lost my mind." "Have you?" "Completely." He leaned down to kiss her, soft and sweet. "And I don't care." It was true. Adrian had never experienced anything like this consuming need to be with someone, to take care of them, to build a life around their happiness. He'd canceled board meetings to bring Zara soup when she was nauseated. He'd learned to cook simple meals that wouldn't trigger her food aversions. He'd even started carrying ginger candy in his pocket, just in case. His friends were baffled. His mother was suspicious. His business partners were concerned about his sudden unavailability. Adrian had never been happier. "Okay, next question," he said, picking up another flashcard. "Appropriate acetaminophen dosage for a 30-pound toddler with fever. 15 milligrams per kilogram, so roughly." Zara closed her eyes, calculating. 200 milligrams. Perfect. Adrian tossed the card aside and pulled her up to sit facing him. "You're going to be an incredible nurse. If I can finish school while growing a human being." "You will. I'll make sure of it." Zara studied his face, still sometimes surprised by the certainty in his voice when he talked about their future. "You really believe that?" "I believe in you. I believe in us." His hands came up to frame her face. "I believe we can make this work, no matter how complicated it gets." She wanted to believe him. In moments like this, surrounded by the domestic intimacy they'd built, it felt possible. But doubt still crept in during the quiet moments, when she remembered how different their worlds were. "What happens when people find out?" she asked. "About us, about the baby?" "We'll handle it." "But what if?" Adrian silenced her with a kiss, deep and thorough and full of promise. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers. "Stop borrowing trouble," he murmured. "We're happy. Let's just be happy." And they were. Ridiculously, impossibly happy. Adrian started spending most nights at her apartment, despite the fact that his penthouse was 20 times larger and infinitely more comfortable. He said he liked the coziness of her space, the way it felt like a real home instead of a magazine spread. Zara suspected he just liked taking care of her, and she was learning to let him. "You know," she said one Saturday morning as they made breakfast together in her tiny kitchen, "I never thought I'd like being pregnant." "No." Adrian looked up from where he was flipping pancakes, a skill he'd apparently taught himself from YouTube videos because she'd mentioned craving them. "I always imagined it would be this romantic thing, you know? Planning with someone you love, picking out nursery colors, feeling like you were creating this perfect little family." She touched her stomach, which was just starting to show a small bump. "But even though this started as a mistake, even though everything about it is backwards and complicated, I'm happy. Yeah. I think our baby is going to be lucky." Adrian set down the spatula and turned to face her fully. "Our baby." Zara blushed, realizing what she'd said. "I mean, if you want to be involved. I know this isn't what you signed up for when you decided to donate." "Zara." Adrian's voice was quiet, intense. "I want to be involved in every single thing. Doctor's appointments, midnight feedings, first steps, first words, first day of school. I want it all." The conviction in his voice made her eyes burn with tears. "Really? Really?" He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. "I want to marry you." The words slipped out before he could stop them, and they both froze. "What?" Zara pulled back to stare at him. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, looking as surprised as she felt. "I didn't mean to say that." "Well, I did mean it, but I didn't mean to say it like that. I had a whole plan with a ring and—" "You have a ring?" "I might have looked at some rings. Hypothetically." Adrian's cheeks were flushed, and he looked younger, more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. "Zara, I know it's crazy. I know we've only known each other for a month. But I love you. I'm completely, irrevocably in love with you, and I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy." Zara stared at him, her heart hammering against her ribs. A month ago, she'd been a virgin who'd never even been on a real date. Now she was pregnant and in love with a billionaire who wanted to marry her. "Say something," Adrian said quietly. "Please." "I love you too," she whispered, and watched his face transform with relief and joy. "But Adrian, marriage? That's huge. That's what people do when they love each other and want to build a life together." He cupped her face in his hands. "That's what I want with you. Not because of the baby, not because of some sense of obligation, but because I can't imagine my future without you in it." Have you ever had a moment where someone offered you everything you'd ever dreamed of? How did you know whether to take the leap or protect yourself? "This is insane," Zara said, but she was smiling through her tears. "I know. We barely know each other. I know everything that matters. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar and that you hum when you're concentrating. I know you're afraid of spiders, but you'll kill them yourself rather than ask for help. I know you cry at commercials, but you never cry for yourself. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met, and the kindest, and the most beautiful." His thumbs brushed away her tears. "I know I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. Adrian. Marry me, Zara. Not because it's practical or because it's what people expect, but because I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. Because I want to be your partner in everything, raising our child, building our future, facing whatever comes next." The yes was on the tip of her tongue, but before she could speak, her phone rang. Then Adrian's phone. Then hers again. "Ignore them," Adrian said, his eyes never leaving hers. But the phones kept ringing. And ringing. Finally, Adrian sighed and grabbed his phone. "This better be an emergency." His face went white as he looked at the screen. "Adrian." Zara felt a chill of foreboding. "What is it?" Instead of answering, he opened his phone and held it out to her. The headline on the news app made her stomach drop. "Billionaire's secret baby, Adrian Blackwood's pregnant mistress revealed." Below it was a photo of them together, taken through her apartment window. Adrian holding her, both of them laughing, completely unaware they were being watched. "Oh my God," Zara whispered. Adrian was already scrolling through more articles, his expression growing darker with each one. "It's everywhere. Every major news outlet, Every gossip blog, he stopped, his jaw tightening. They know about the hospital. They know about the mistake. Zara's phone buzzed with a text from her mother. Baby, what is this? Call me right now. Then another from Maya. Girl. Your face is on the TV. What the hell? Then from her nursing school program director, Ms. Williams. Please call me immediately. We need to discuss your status in the program. They're going to think I'm a gold digger, Zara said, sinking onto her couch as the reality of the situation hit her. They're going to think I got pregnant on purpose to trap you. No one who matters will think that. Everyone will think that. Zara's voice was rising, panic setting in. Look at this headline, Billionaire's Secret Baby. Not hospital error results in pregnancy, or medical mistake leads to lawsuit. They're making it sound like I'm some sort of scheming. Zara, breathe. Adrian sat beside her, reaching for her hands, but she pulled away. Don't you see? This changes everything. Your world, your business, your reputation. I don't care about any of that. You will. Zara stood up, pacing now, her mind racing. When your stock price drops, when your business partners start asking questions, when every gold digger in the city sees this as an opportunity to come forward with their own stories. That won't happen. It will. And I'll be the woman who destroyed your life. The poor black girl from Harlem who got pregnant and ruined everything for the golden boy billionaire. Adrian stood too, his expression fierce. Stop. Just stop. I won't let you do this. Do what? Convince yourself that this is some kind of disaster. That what we have isn't real or worth fighting for. He moved toward her, but she backed away. Zara, I meant what I said before. I love you. I want to marry you. Some tabloid stories aren't going to change that. Some tabloid stories? Zara grabbed her phone, scrolling through the endless articles. Adrian, they're calling me a welfare queen. They're saying I probably got pregnant on purpose to secure a payday. They're digging into my family, my background, my school records. Her voice cracked. They found out about my dad leaving. They're saying I have daddy issues and a history of targeting successful men. Adrian's face went white with rage. I'll sue them. I'll destroy every publication that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Zara threw her hands up. You think you can just throw money and lawyers at this and make it go away. But I'm the one who has to live with the consequences. I'm the one who has to walk into school tomorrow and face people who think I'm a calculating gold digger. I'm the one who has to deal with strangers on the street recognizing me as that woman who trapped a billionaire. Then we'll leave. We'll go somewhere they can't find us. Run away? Adrian, do you hear yourself? You're talking about appending your entire life because of me. Because I love you. And what happens when that's not enough? The words came out sharper than she intended, but she couldn't stop them. What happens when you wake up one day and realize that loving me has cost you everything you worked for? What happens when you start to resent me for ruining your perfect life? That will never happen. You don't know that. You can't know that. Zara sank back onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. Maybe we should take a break. Let things calm down, figure out what this means for us. No. Adrian's voice was firm, final. I'm not running from this. I'm not running from you. Adrian. I said no. He knelt in front of her, taking her hands before she could pull away. Zara, look at me. Really look at me. Reluctantly, she met his eyes. I have spent my entire adult life building walls around myself. Protecting my business, my reputation, my privacy. I have never let anyone get close enough to threaten any of that. His thumbs brushed across her knuckles. But with you, I don't want walls. I don't want protection. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be yours. The timing is terrible. The timing is perfect. Right now, before this gets any more complicated, before there are any more obstacles or excuses, marry me, Zara. Today. This morning. Let's go to City Hall and make this official before anyone else can have an opinion about it. Zara stared at him, her heart racing. You're serious. Dead serious. I love you. You love me. We're having a baby together. Everything else is just noise. For a moment, she let herself imagine it. Walking into City Hall with Adrian, promising to love each other forever, starting their life together with complete honesty and commitment. It was tempting, seductive, exactly what her heart wanted. But her head knew better. "I need time to think," she said finally. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or fear. "How much time?" "I don't know. A few days? A week? Just, let me process this. Let me figure out how to handle the media attention, how to protect my school and my job and my family from this circus." Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Okay. But Zara." "Yeah. Don't let them convince you that what we have isn't real. Don't let them make you afraid of being happy." She wanted to promise him that she wouldn't. But as her phone buzzed again with another text, another call, another reminder that their private happiness was now public property, she felt the walls going back up around her heart. Maybe Adrian was right. Maybe love was enough to overcome anything. But as she watched him gather his things to leave, giving her the space she'd asked for, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that their golden period was over before it had really begun. The worst part was, she had no idea how much worse things were about to get. 3 days after the story broke, Zara thought she was handling things well. She'd taken a temporary leave from her job at the hospital to avoid the reporters who'd started camping outside. Her nursing school had been understanding, allowing her to complete her coursework remotely while the media attention died down. Adrian had hired a security team to keep the paparazzi away from her apartment, and his publicist was working to control the narrative. It wasn't ideal, but it was manageable. They could get through this. That's what she told herself right up until the moment her world exploded. It started with a phone call from Maya. "Girl, you need to see something," her best friend said without preamble. "I'm sending you a link right now." "Maya, I told you I'm not reading any more articles." "This isn't an article. It's a video. From 3 months ago." Zara's phone buzzed with a text containing a YouTube link. "What kind of video?" "Just watch it. Then call me back." The video was from a tech conference in Silicon Valley. The title read, "Adrian Blackwood discusses the future of fertility technology." Zara almost closed it immediately. She'd seen enough coverage of Adrian's business ventures to last a lifetime, but something in Maya's voice made her press play. Adrian appeared on screen, looking polished and confident in an expensive suit, speaking to a room full of investors and tech executives. "The fertility industry is ripe for disruption," he was saying. "Current methods are inefficient, expensive, and often traumatic for patients. But what if we could change that? What if we could create scenarios where conception happens naturally, organically, without the clinical atmosphere that makes the process so difficult for many couples?" A woman in the audience raised her hand. "Can you be more specific about what you mean by naturally?" Adrian smiled, that charming, confident smile Zara had come to love. "Imagine a fertility treatment that feels like destiny rather than medical intervention. Where patients don't feel like they're in a lab, but rather like they're experiencing something miraculous, something meant to be." The moderator leaned forward. "Are you talking about some kind of deception? Making patients think their pregnancy happened naturally when it was actually planned?" "I'm talking about revolutionizing the entire experience. Making fertility treatment feel like, well, like falling in love." The audience laughed, and Adrian continued, "The psychological component of fertility treatment is hugely underestimated. Patients who feel stressed, clinical, or like they're just another case number have lower success rates. But patients who feel emotionally connected to the process, who believe in something greater than just medical intervention, they have dramatically better outcomes." Zara's hands started shaking. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Blackwood?" another audience member asked. "I'm proposing we study real-world scenarios where fertility treatments result in genuine emotional connections. Where patients form relationships with donors, where the process becomes about human connection rather than just genetic material transfer." Adrian paused, and even through the screen, Zara could see the intensity in his eyes. "I'm talking about a study that would revolutionize how we think about conception, relationships, and the role of emotional attachment in successful pregnancies." The video ended. Zara stared at her phone screen, her mind trying to process what she'd just heard. It had to be a coincidence. Adrian gave dozens of speeches, floated hundreds of ideas. This was just theoretical discussion. Her phone rang. Maya again. Did you watch it? Maya, this doesn't mean anything. It's just a business presentation. Zara. Maya's voice was gentle but firm. There's more. Keep scrolling down in the comments. Zara's finger moved almost against her will, scrolling through the comments section below the video. Most were typical tech industry responses, questions about funding, implementation, regulatory concerns. But then she saw it. A comment from Dr. Patricia Chun, posted just 2 weeks after the video went live. Fascinating presentation, Adrian. Would love to discuss potential collaboration opportunities at Manhattan Memorial. Our fertility clinic might be the perfect testing ground for this type of innovative approach. And Adrian's response, thanks, Patricia. Let's set up a meeting. I think we could create something truly groundbreaking together. The phone slipped from Zara's numb fingers. The fertility clinic. Manhattan Memorial. The same hospital where she'd volunteered for what she thought was a simple research study. The same Dr. Chun who'd told her about the mistake that had changed her life forever. It wasn't a mistake. It was a study. She was a test subject. The room started spinning. Zara made it to the bathroom just in time to be violently sick, her body rejecting the truth along with everything else. When she was done, she sat on the cold tile floor, shaking, trying to breathe through the panic that was closing her throat. Her phone was ringing again. This time it was Adrian. She answered without thinking. Hey beautiful, his warm voice said. How are you feeling today? I was thinking I could bring dinner over, maybe we could. I know. Silence. Zara? Know what? I know about the study. I know about your presentation. I know about your collaboration with Dr. Chun. Her voice sounded foreign to her own ears, flat and distant. I know that what happened to me wasn't a mistake. More silence. Then, Zara, let me explain. Explain what? That I was a lab rat? That every moment we've shared, every feeling I thought was real, was just part of your research. She laughed, and the sound was bitter, broken. God, I'm so stupid. I actually believed you cared about me. I do care about you. Zara, I love you. Stop. The word came out as a sob. Just stop lying to me. How long? How long have you been studying me like some kind of experiment? It's not like that. How long, Adrian? A pause that felt like eternity. Then, quietly, from the beginning. The admission hit her like a physical blow. Everything, their first meeting at the cafe, his kindness, his attention, his proposal, all of it had been part of some sick study. Zara, please, let me come over. Let me explain properly. No. She was surprised by how steady her voice sounded now, how calm. The hysteria had passed, leaving behind something colder, emptier. Don't come here. Don't call me. Don't contact me again. Zara, you don't understand. It started as research, yes, but what I feel for you is real. What we have is real. What we have is nothing. What we have is a lie I was stupid enough to believe. She closed her eyes, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. I trusted you. I let you make me believe that someone like you could actually love someone like me. Someone like you? What does that mean? It means I forgot my place. The words came out harder than she intended, edged with years of hurt and disappointment. I forgot that women like me don't get fairy tale endings with men like you. We get used for research studies. That's not, Zara. Please don't do this. Don't throw away everything we've built because of how it started. Have you ever discovered that something you believed was real was actually an elaborate deception? How did you find the strength to move forward? We didn't build anything. You constructed an experiment, and I was pathetic enough to think it was love. She hung up. Within seconds, he was calling back. She turned off her phone. But the revelations weren't over. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Zara opened it expecting to find Adrian, ready to throw him out bodily if necessary. Instead, she found a woman she didn't recognize. Tall, blonde, elegant in the way that spoke of old money and good breeding. Zara Williams. Who's asking? My name is Catherine Whitmore. I think we need to talk. Something about the woman's tone, the way she looked at Zara with a mixture of pity and disdain, made Zara's stomach clench. About what? About Adrian Blackwood. And about what he hasn't told you. Against her better judgment, Zara let the woman into her apartment. Catherine looked around the small space with barely concealed distaste, her gaze lingering on the second-hand furniture and peeling paint. "Nice place," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "What do you want?" Catherine opened her designer handbag and pulled out a folder. "I want to save you from making the same mistake I did." She handed Zara a photograph. It showed Adrian at what looked like a charity gala, his arm around Catherine's waist, both of them smiling at the camera. They looked perfect together, like they belonged in the same world, the same tax bracket, the same life. "This was taken 6 months ago," Catherine said. "At the Met Gala. We'd been engaged for 8 months." Zara's world tilted sideways. "Engaged? Oh, he didn't mention me." Catherine's laugh was sharp, cutting. "How interesting. Though I suppose it makes sense, I don't exactly fit the narrative of his little poverty experiment." "What are you talking about?" Catherine settled herself on Zara's couch like she owned it. Adrian has always been fascinated by authenticity. Real people, real emotions, real struggles. It's his thing, the billionaire who never forgot where he came from. She paused, studying her manicured nails. "The problem is, after a while, everyone in our world becomes predictable. The conversations, the relationships, even the sex, it all becomes so manufactured." Zara felt sick again, but she forced herself to listen. So Adrian started looking for something more genuine, more raw. Catherine's eyes met Zara's, and there was something cruel in them. "He called it social experimentation. I called it slumming." "You're lying." "Am I?" Catherine reached into her folder again, this time pulling out what looked like a contract. "This is the agreement he had me sign when we got engaged. A comprehensive NDA about his extracurricular research interests." Zara took the document with shaking hands. The legal language was dense, but certain phrases jumped out at her: subject recruitment and observation, emotional response documentation, long-term relationship sustainability studies. "He's done this before," Catherine continued conversationally. "The fertility clinic thing is new, I'll give him that. Very creative. But the basic pattern? Finding vulnerable women, making them fall in love with him, studying their responses." She shrugged. "That's just Adrian being Adrian." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because unlike the others, you got pregnant. That changes things." Catherine leaned forward, her expression suddenly serious. "Adrian doesn't do commitment, Zara. He doesn't do forever. He studies people until he gets bored, then he moves on to the next subject. But a baby? That's permanent. That's messy. That threatens his perfect, controlled world." "So what are you saying?" "I'm saying he's going to disappear. Maybe not today, maybe not next week, but soon. He'll find some excuse, the media attention, the complications, the fundamental incompatibility of your worlds. He'll make it sound noble, like he's protecting you. But really, he's just moving on to the next experiment." Zara stared at the contract in her hands, her vision blurring. "How many others?" "That I know of? 4. There were probably more." Catherine stood, smoothing down her designer dress. "Look, I'm not trying to be cruel. I'm trying to save you from wasting years of your life on someone who sees you as a case study rather than a person." After Catherine left, Zara sat alone in her apartment, surrounded by the evidence of her own stupidity. The contract. The photos. The video of Adrian describing exactly the kind of study she'd unknowingly become part of. Her phone had been buzzing constantly, Adrian calling, texting, trying to reach her. She finally turned it back on and scrolled through the messages. "Please let me explain. It's not what you think. I love you. That part was never fake. Don't let her poison you against me. You're not answering. I'm coming over." The last message was sent 10 minutes ago. Zara looked around her apartment, at the ginger tea Adrian had brought her, at the textbooks they'd studied together, at the couch where he'd held her and promised her forever. Everything felt contaminated now, tainted by the knowledge that none of it had been real. When the knock came at her door, She didn't answer it. Zara, I know you're in there, Adrian's voice called through the door. Please, just let me talk to you. Let me explain what really happened. She pressed her back against the wall, sliding down until she was sitting on the floor. The study was real, Adrian continued, his voice muffled but desperate. I won't lie to you about that. But what I feel for you, what we have together, that was never part of any experiment. That's real, Zara. That's the most real thing in my life. She closed her eyes, fighting not to believe him. Catherine came to see you, didn't she? I saw her leaving the building. She's lying, Zara. We were never engaged. We dated, yes, but it was never serious. She's been trying to get back together with me for months, and now she's using you to. Stop, Zara called out, her voice breaking. Just stop. Silence from the other side of the door. I don't care if Catherine was lying about the engagement, Zara continued. I don't care about your history with her or anyone else. What I care about is that you let me believe what happened at the hospital was a mistake when you knew it wasn't. You let me think I was falling in love with someone who cared about me when I was really just your latest research project. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like, Adrian? Explain to me how accidentally getting someone pregnant as part of a fertility study is different from what I think it is. A long pause. Then, the study was about emotional connection in fertility treatments. Whether patients who formed relationships with donors had better outcomes, more successful pregnancies, healthier babies. But Zara, what happened with us, the way I felt about you, the way you changed my life, none of that was planned. But you let it happen. You let me fall in love with you knowing that I didn't have all the information. Knowing that if I understood what was really going on, I might make different choices. Would you have made different choices? The question hung in the air between them, and Zara realized she didn't know the answer. If she'd known from the beginning that her pregnancy wasn't an accident, that Adrian was studying her responses, would she have still let herself fall for him? It doesn't matter, she said finally. Because you didn't give me the chance to decide. You took that choice away from me, just like the hospital took away my choice about getting pregnant in the first place. Zara, please. Open the door. Let me look at you while we talk about this. No. I love you. No, you don't. She was surprised by how certain she sounded. You love the idea of me. You love having someone real and genuine to study. You love feeling like a hero swooping in to save the poor girl from Harlem. But you don't love me, because you don't even know who I really am. That's not true. Isn't it? When you look at me, what do you see? Do you see Zara Williams, nursing student, daughter, friend? Or do you see Subject A in your fertility study? The woman who proved your theory about emotional connection improving pregnancy outcomes. Silence. That's what I thought, Zara said, tears finally spilling over. Go away, Adrian. Go back to your world, finish your study, publish your papers. Find your next subject. But leave me alone. Zara. Leave me alone. She heard his footsteps retreating down the hallway, and then she was truly alone. Alone with the wreckage of everything she believed about her life, her future, her worth as a human being. She sat on her kitchen floor until the sun went down, crying until she had no tears left. Then she called Maya. I need you to come over, she said when her friend answered. Are you okay? You sound. I'm not okay. I don't think I'm going to be okay for a very long time. I'm on my way. After Maya arrived and Zara had told her everything, the study, Catherine's visit, the devastating realization that nothing about her relationship with Adrian had been what she thought, they sat together on the couch, sharing a pint of ice cream and tissues. So what now? Maya asked gently. Zara looked down at her still small bump, placing her hand protectively over it. Now I figure out how to raise a baby alone. How to finish nursing school. How to rebuild my life from scratch. What about Adrian? I mean, regardless of how this started, he is the father. He's a sperm donor who got too involved in his own research, Zara said firmly. Nothing more. But even as she said it, she could still feel the ghost of his touch on her skin, could still hear the way he'd said her name, could still remember the look in his eyes when he'd proposed to her. The worst part wasn't that he'd lied to her. The worst part was that some small, stupid part of her still loved him anyway. And that was the most devastating truth of all. For the first week after learning the truth, Zara felt nothing. She went through the motions of living like a ghost haunting her own life. She attended her online nursing classes, taking notes in handwriting that looked like hers but felt foreign. She ate the meals Maya brought over, tasting nothing. She answered calls from her mother with responses that were technically words but carried no real meaning. "I'm fine," she said to everyone who asked. "Just tired." Fine. What a strange word for complete devastation. The numbness was almost a blessing. It kept her functional when functionality was all she had left. She could sit through a lecture on pediatric cardiac care without thinking about how Adrian had researched pregnancy symptoms to take better care of her. She could shower and dress and pretend to be human without acknowledging that the man she'd loved had never existed at all. But numbness, Zara learned, was temporary. It started to crack on day 8, when she was walking to the pharmacy to pick up prenatal vitamins. A couple was walking ahead of her, the man's hand resting protectively on his pregnant partner's lower back, both of them laughing at something only they found funny. They looked so happy, so genuinely connected, so real. The word hit her like a slap. Real. Something she'd thought she'd had but never actually possessed. She made it home before the tears started, but once they began, they wouldn't stop. She cried for the life she'd imagined, for the future she'd started to believe in, for the version of herself who'd been naive enough to trust a man who saw her as a research subject. Maya found her on the bathroom floor 2 hours later, still in her coat, surrounded by crumpled tissues. "Oh honey," Maya whispered, sinking down beside her. "Talk to me." "I can't," Zara sobbed. "I can't think about it without wanting to disappear." "Then don't think. Just breathe." But breathing hurt. Everything hurt. The weight of her own stupidity, the humiliation of how completely she'd been fooled, the knowledge that somewhere Adrian was probably writing up his findings about how effectively he'd manipulated her emotions. What kind of person does that? Zara asked when the sobs finally subsided into hiccups. What kind of person gets someone pregnant for a study and then pretends to fall in love with them? "A sick one," Maya said firmly. "A broken one. Someone who's forgotten how to be human." But I believed him, Maya. I looked into his eyes when he proposed and I believed every word. What does that say about me? It says you're human. It says you have a heart. It says you were brave enough to love someone. Maya helped her up from the floor. "It doesn't say anything bad about you, Zara. This is all on him." But that wasn't how it felt. It felt like every insecurity she'd ever had about not being enough, not being worthy of real love, had been proven correct. Women like her didn't get fairy tale endings. They got used and discarded by men who belonged to different worlds. The rage came next. It hit her 3 days later while she was trying to study, triggered by a simple sentence in her pediatric pharmacology textbook. "Patient trust is the foundation of effective medical care." Patient trust. The book went flying across the room, pages scattering like wounded birds. Then her coffee mug followed, shattering against the wall in a satisfying explosion of ceramic and caffeine. Then her laptop, her phone, anything within reach that could break and make noise and somehow express the fury that was eating her alive from the inside out. Liar! She screamed at her empty apartment, at Adrian, at herself. Fucking liar. She'd trusted him. She'd trusted the hospital. She'd trusted the system that was supposed to protect patients, not use them as guinea pigs. She trusted her own instincts when every rational thought had told her this was too good to be true. The rage felt better than the numbness, cleaner somehow. It gave her energy, purpose, a target for all the pain she didn't know how to process. She could hate Adrian. She could hate Dr. Chen. She could hate Catherine Whitmore and her smug superiority and her designer clothes and her casual cruelty. She could hate everyone except herself. But the rage was exhausting, and it didn't last. What came after was worse. The bargaining phase hit her at 3 in the morning on a Tuesday, when she woke up from a dream where none of it had happened. In the dream, she was still the woman who'd never been kissed, still volunteering for what she thought was a simple research study. Still innocent of the knowledge that love could be weaponized, that pregnancy could be orchestrated, that her own heart could be turned against her so completely. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her hand on her growing bump, and started negotiating with a God she wasn't sure she believed in. If I could go back, I would make different choices. If I could undo the study, I would stay away from the hospital. If I could unlive the last 2 months, I would never let myself trust him. If I could trade this baby for my old life back, would I? The last thought made her sit up, horrified with herself. No. No, whatever else was true, whatever lies she'd been told, this baby was innocent. This baby was hers. This baby was the only real thing to come out of this nightmare. When have you felt like your world was completely turned upside down? How did you find the strength to keep going when everything felt hopeless? But knowing she loved her unborn child didn't make the bargaining stop. She found herself making increasingly desperate deals with the universe. If Adrian came back and apologized, really apologized, would that make it okay? If he could prove that some part of his feelings had been real, would that be enough? If he chose her over his research, over his world, over everything else, could she forgive him? The questions tormented her because she knew the answers, and the answers made her feel weak and pathetic and everything she'd sworn she'd never be. Yes. She would forgive him. Despite everything, despite the lies and the manipulation and the complete violation of her trust, some traitorous part of her heart was still waiting for him to fight for her. Which made what happened next even more devastating. The call came on a Thursday evening while she was trying to force herself to eat dinner. An unknown number, but something made her answer it. Ms. Williams? This is Jonathan Pierce from Pierce, Barrett and Associates. I'm Mr. Blackwood's attorney. Zara's fork clanged against her plate. What do you want? Mr. Blackwood has asked me to reach out regarding your pregnancy and the circumstances surrounding it. He'd like to arrange a settlement that would be beneficial for all parties involved. Settlement. The word hit her like a physical blow. What kind of settlement? A comprehensive agreement that would provide financial support for you and the child, cover all medical expenses, educational costs, housing, essentially ensuring you never have to worry about money again. In exchange, you would agree to certain confidentiality provisions and limitations on Mr. Blackwood's legal obligations. Zara closed her eyes, feeling something inside her chest crack open. He's trying to buy me off. I wouldn't characterize it that way, Ms. Williams. Mr. Blackwood is simply trying to ensure that you and the child are well provided for while protecting his privacy and business interests. And if I don't agree? Then we'd have to explore other legal avenues to resolve this situation. Paternity tests, custody arrangements, court proceedings that would likely be very public and very difficult for everyone involved. The threat was delivered politely, professionally, but it was still a threat. Sign his settlement and disappear quietly, or face a legal battle against one of the richest men in America. I need time to think about it, Zara managed. Of course. But Ms. Williams? Mr. Blackwood is hoping to resolve this quickly and amicably. Dragging things out benefits no one. After the lawyer hung up, Zara sat in her kitchen, staring at her half-eaten dinner, processing what had just happened. Adrian wasn't coming back to fight for her. He wasn't going to prove that some part of their relationship had been real. He was trying to make her disappear with money and legal threats. This was how it ended. Not with love or apologies or any of the reconciliation she'd been secretly hoping for, but with a settlement negotiation and an NDA. The depression that followed was unlike anything she'd ever experienced. It wasn't sadness. Sadness was too simple, too clean. This was a gray fog that settled over everything, making the world feel muffled and distant and ultimately meaningless. She stopped attending her online classes. She stopped showering regularly. She stopped returning calls from her mother, from Maya, from the nursing school administrators who were growing concerned about her sudden absence. She lay in bed for hours, staring at nothing, feeling the baby move inside her and wondering how she was going to raise a child when she could barely manage to raise herself from her pillow. Maya staged an intervention on day 12 of the fog. That's it, her best friend announced, marching into the apartment with her spare key and throwing open all the curtains. I'm done watching you disappear. Go away, Zara mumbled from under her covers. Nope. Get up. Shower. We're going for a walk. I don't want to walk. I don't care what you want. I care about what you need. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, her voice gentling. Zara, baby, you're scaring me. This isn't you. Maybe it is me. Maybe this is who I really am when I'm not pretending to be someone worth loving. Stop that. Maya's voice was sharp now. Don't you dare let that man convince you that you're not worthy of love. Don't you dare let him take that away from you too. He didn't take it away. He just showed me the truth, that women like me don't get to be loved by men like him. Not really. Women like you? Maya stood up, hands on her hips. What the hell does that mean? Poor. Black. From Harlem. Take your pick. Those aren't flaws, Zara. Those are just facts about where you come from. They don't determine your worth or your right to be loved. Don't they? Zara finally sat up, and Maya sucked in a breath at how hollow she looked. Because it seems like every time I dare to want something better, the universe finds a way to remind me of my place. Your place is wherever you decide it is. My place is raising Adrian Blackwood's baby alone while he pays me to stay quiet about how he got me pregnant for a research study. The words came out flat, emotionless. My place is being grateful for his settlement money because it's more than someone like me deserves anyway. You're going to take the money? Zara shrugged. What choice do I have? Fight him in court? With what lawyer? With what resources? He could drag this out for years, destroy my reputation completely, make sure I never work as a nurse anywhere. At least this way, the baby will be taken care of. And what about you? What about me? Don't you deserve more than just being taken care of? Don't you deserve to be fought for, to be chosen, to be loved? I thought I did. Zara's voice cracked. But I was wrong. Maya stared at her for a long moment, then did something unexpected. She grabbed Zara's shoulders and shook her, hard. Listen to me, she said fiercely. I have watched you work 2 jobs while going to school. I have watched you take care of your mother when she was sick. I have watched you stand up to professors who underestimated you, to supervisors who tried to push you around, to a world that told you that you didn't belong in nursing school. You are the strongest person I know, Zara Williams. And I will not let you give up now. I'm tired, Maya. I'm so tired. Then rest. But don't quit. Don't let him win by making you believe you were never worth fighting for in the first place. Something in Maya's voice cut through the fog just enough for Zara to really look at her friend, at the tears in her eyes, at the fierce protectiveness in her expression, at the love that had nothing to do with research studies or settlements or anything other than genuine care. I don't know how to fight back, Zara whispered. I don't know how to be strong anymore. You don't have to know how. You just have to decide to try. Maya squeezed her hands. One day at a time. One choice at a time. One breath at a time. That night, after Maya left, Zara sat in her bathroom looking at herself in the mirror for the first time in weeks. She looked terrible, hollow-eyed, pale, like a ghost of herself. But she was still there. Still breathing. Still carrying a child who deserved better than a mother who'd given up on herself. She thought about the settlement offer, about taking Adrian's money and disappearing quietly into whatever life he thought she deserved. She thought about signing an NDA and pretending that none of this had ever happened. Then she thought about the little girl she'd been, the one who'd believed she could be anything she wanted to be until the world taught her otherwise. She thought about that little girl's dreams of helping people, of making a difference, of proving that where you came from didn't determine where you could go. And for the first time since learning the truth about Adrian's study, Zara felt something other than pain. She felt anger. Not the destructive rage that had made her throw things and scream at empty rooms, but a clean, purposeful anger that cut through the depression like a blade. Adrian Blackwood thought he could buy her silence. He thought he could reduce her to a settlement negotiation and a confidentiality agreement. He thought he could use her body for research, manipulate her emotions for data, and then make her disappear with enough money to assuage his guilt. He was wrong. Zara Williams had been underestimated before. She'd been dismissed, overlooked, written off by people who thought they knew what someone like her was capable of. They'd all been wrong too. She placed her hand on her growing belly, feeling the baby kick as if in agreement. You know what, little one? She said softly. Your mama's going to show the world exactly what she's made of. It wasn't much, just a whisper of defiance in a bathroom mirror. But it was enough. It was a beginning. 3 weeks after the settlement offer, Zara Williams walked into the Manhattan Memorial Hospital boardroom wearing her best dress, a simple black sheath she'd bought for job interviews, and carrying a folder that would change everything. She wasn't alone. Maya sat beside her, along with Jennifer Rodriguez, the pro bono lawyer who'd taken Zara's case after hearing her story. Across the polished conference table sat Adrian, his legal team, Dr. Chun, and several hospital administrators who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. Adrian hadn't looked at her directly since she'd entered the room. He sat rigid in his expensive suit, staring at his hands, and Zara was surprised to realize how different he looked. Thinner, maybe. Tired. Like he hadn't been sleeping well. Good. Thank you all for coming, said Dr. Margaret Santos, the hospital's chief administrator. I understand Ms. Williams has some concerns about the settlement offer that she'd like to address before we proceed. That's right, Zara said, her voice steady despite the way her heart was racing. But before we talk about settlements, I think everyone in this room should understand exactly what happened here. She opened her folder and pulled out the first document, a printed copy of Adrian's presentation from the tech conference. 6 months ago, Mr. Blackwood gave a presentation about revolutionizing fertility treatment through emotional connection. He proposed studying scenarios where patients form relationships with donors, where the process becomes about human connection rather than just genetic material transfer. Dr. Chun shifted uncomfortably in her seat. 2 weeks after that presentation, Dr. Chun reached out to Mr. Blackwood to discuss collaboration opportunities. They designed a study that would test his theories about emotional attachment improving pregnancy outcomes. Zara placed the next document on the table, email correspondence between Adrian and Dr. Chun that her lawyer had obtained through discovery. The plan was simple. Find a suitable test subject, preferably someone young, inexperienced, and emotionally vulnerable. Arrange for her to be artificially inseminated without her knowledge or consent. Then have Mr. Blackwood insert himself into her life to study her emotional responses and attachment patterns. Adrian's head snapped up. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? Zara met his eyes for the first time, and she saw him flinch at whatever he found in her gaze. Then please explain to everyone here what it was like. The study wasn't about manipulation. It was about understanding. Understanding what? How effectively you could make someone fall in love with you. How completely you could fool someone into believing your feelings were real. My feelings were real. Adrian's voice was quiet but intense. Zara, everything I felt for you, everything between us, that was never part of any study. Prove it. The challenge hung in the air between them. Adrian stared at her, and Zara could see him struggling with something, the truth maybe, or the weight of what he'd done. I can't, he said finally. Because it was all part of the study. No. Because I didn't know myself where the research ended and my actual feelings began. Adrian's composure cracked, and suddenly he looked younger, more vulnerable. I told myself I was maintaining professional distance. I told myself I was just observing, documenting, learning. But from the moment I met you in that cafe, nothing was professional anymore. But you didn't tell me that. You let me believe the pregnancy was an accident. You let me fall in love with you while you were studying my responses like a lab rat. I know. And I will regret that for the rest of my life. Zara pulled out another document, the contract Catherine had shown her. This is the NDA your ex-girlfriend signed. It references your extracurricular research interests and includes provisions for subject recruitment and observation. Tell me, Mr. Blackwood, how many other women have you studied? How many other hearts have you broken in the name of research? Adrian's lawyer leaned over to whisper something to him, but Adrian waved him away. None, he said, looking directly at Zara. Catherine was lying. That contract was something my legal team drafted years ago for a completely different situation, a business deal that fell through. She must have kept a copy and edited it to make it look like it was about personal relationships. How convenient. It's the truth. Zara, you were the first and only person I've ever studied this way. And I never intended for it to go as far as it did. How far did you intend it to go? Adrian was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. At first, I just wanted to meet you, to understand how you were processing the situation. But then you invited me into your apartment, and you were so. He struggled for words. You were everything real that was missing from my life. You challenged me, saw through my bullshit, made me want to be better than I was. I fell in love with you, Zara. That was never supposed to happen. But it did happen. And instead of telling me the truth, you let me believe a lie. Yes. You proposed to me while I was unknowingly part of your research.
Yes.
You were prepared to marry me without ever telling me how we really met.
Adrian closed his eyes. Yes.
The admission hung heavy in the room. Dr. Santos cleared her throat. Ms. Williams, while this is all very troubling, I'm not sure what you're hoping to accomplish. What I'm hoping to accomplish, Zara interrupted, is making sure this never happens to anyone else. She pulled out the final document in her folder, a thick legal brief prepared by her attorney. This is a federal complaint I'm filing against Manhattan Memorial Hospital and Adrian Blackwood for conducting illegal human experimentation without informed consent. I'm also filing a civil lawsuit seeking damages for emotional distress, violation of medical ethics, and intentional infliction of harm. The room erupted. Adrian's lawyers started talking rapidly to each other. Dr. Chen looked like she might be sick. Hospital administrators were frantically making notes. But Zara wasn't finished. I'm also going public with the entire story. Every detail, every document, every email. The tech conference presentation, the collaboration planning, the deliberate deception, all of it. Because women deserve to know when they're being treated as test subjects rather than human beings. What would you do if you discovered your entire relationship was built on a lie? Would you have the courage to fight back, even if it meant going up against powerful people? Ms. Williams, Dr. Santos said carefully, perhaps we could discuss an expanded settlement that would address your concerns. There is no settlement. Zara's voice cut across the room like a blade. There is no amount of money that makes what you did to me acceptable. You violated my body, my trust, and my right to make informed decisions about my own life. That's not something you can pay to make disappear. Adrian finally spoke. What do you want, Zara? She turned to face him fully, and for a moment, the room faded away. It was just the two of them, the way it had been in her apartment that night when he'd proposed, when she'd still believed their love was real. I want you to understand what you did to me, she said quietly. I want you to know that you took a woman who'd never been in love, who'd never trusted anyone enough to let them close, and you made her believe in fairy tales. You made her think she was worthy of being chosen, of being fought for, of being loved. Her voice grew stronger. And then you showed her it was all an experiment. You showed her that her feelings, her body, her entire sense of self-worth was just data in your research study. Do you have any idea what that does to a person? Adrian's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I'm sorry. God, Zara, I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't undo the damage. Sorry doesn't give me back my ability to trust. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that I'm going to spend the rest of my life wondering if anyone who claims to love me is just using me for something else. You're not, Adrian struggled to find words. You're extraordinary, Zara. Anyone who gets to love you, really love you, will be the luckiest person alive. What I did, the way I handled this, it has nothing to do with your worth as a person. Easy words from the man who reduced me to a case study. You were never just a case study to me. Even when I was trying to convince myself that's all it was, you were never just that. Zara stared at him, searching his face for some sign that he was telling the truth. Part of her, the part that had loved him, that might still love him, wanted desperately to believe that some piece of their connection had been real. But it didn't matter anymore. Here's what's going to happen, she said, addressing the entire room but keeping her eyes on Adrian. The hospital is going to implement new protocols to ensure informed consent for all research studies. They're going to provide compensation to me and my child that reflects the severity of what was done, and they're going to issue a public apology acknowledging their failures. Dr. Santos nodded quickly. That can certainly be arranged. I'm not finished. Zara's voice carried an authority that surprised even her. Mr. Blackwood is going to endure a full investigation by the Medical Ethics Board. He's going to face consequences for his actions that go beyond writing a check. And he's going to stay out of my life completely. Zara, please, Adrian started. I mean it, Adrian. No contact. No attempts to see the baby. No surprise visits or gifts or gestures. You wanted to study emotional attachment? Well, here's your final data point. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you've hurt is to leave them alone. The finality in her voice seemed to hit Adrian like a physical blow. He slumped back in his chair, looking defeated. But, Zara continued, and something in her tone made everyone in the room look up sharply, If, and this is a very big if, you can prove that you've learned from this, that you understand why what you did was wrong, and that you're committed to being the kind of man who deserves to be in a child's life, then maybe someday we can discuss limited visitation.
Hope flickered in Adrian's eyes.
What would I need to prove? That you see me as a person, not a subject. That you respect my choices, even when they're not convenient for you. That you understand consent isn't just about research studies, it's about every aspect of how we treat each other.
Zara paused.
That you can love someone without trying to control or study or fix them.
How long do I have?
As long as it takes. This isn't a business deal with a timeline, Adrian. This is real life, and real trust has to be earned. The meeting ended with lawyers drawing up agreements and administrators scrambling to contain the public relations disaster. But Zara barely noticed the chaos around her. She felt strangely calm, like a weight she'd been carrying for months had finally been lifted from her shoulders. As people filed out of the conference room, Adrian approached her slowly.
Zara.
She looked up at him, and for the first time since learning the truth, she didn't feel the urge to run or rage or break down completely.
Thank you, he said quietly.
For what? For giving me a chance to earn your trust back. For not writing me off completely.
He paused.
For being stronger than I ever was.
I'm not doing this for you, Adrian.
I'm doing it for our child. Every kid deserves the chance to know their father, if their father is willing to do the work to deserve that privilege.
I'll do the work.
Whatever it takes, however long it takes.
We'll see.
Adrian nodded and started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, I meant what I said that night I proposed.
I do love you.
Not the idea of you, not the research subject version of you. Zara Williams. The woman who makes terrible coffee but drinks it anyway because she's too stubborn to admit she needs help. The woman who hums off-key when she studies. The woman who's going to be an incredible nurse because she actually gives a damn about people. His voice cracked. I love you, and I know I have no right to say that after what I've done, but it's true. Zara felt tears prick her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. Love isn't just a feeling, Adrian. It's a choice. It's choosing someone's well-being over your own convenience, their truth over your control, their growth over your comfort. Maybe you felt something for me, but you didn't choose to love me. Not when it mattered.
You're right.
But I'm choosing now. I'm choosing to respect your boundaries, to do the work you're asking me to do, to prove that I can be better. He met her eyes one last time. I'm choosing to love you the way you deserve to be loved from the beginning. After he left, Zara sat alone in the conference room for a few minutes, processing everything that had just happened. She'd confronted the man who'd broken her heart, demanded accountability from the institution that had failed her, and somehow found the strength to leave the door open for healing, not just for Adrian, but for herself. Her phone buzzed with a text from Maya. How did it go? Are you okay? Zara smiled, typing back, I'm better than okay. I'm free. 6 months later. Zara Williams graduated from nursing school summa cum laude on a bright spring morning, her 6-month-old daughter Elena, sleeping peacefully in Maya's arms in the audience. She'd named the baby Elena because it meant bright light, which is exactly what her daughter had been during the darkest period of her life. The settlement with the hospital had been generous enough to ensure that Zara never had to worry about money again, but she'd still chosen to work. She'd taken a position in the pediatric ICU at a different hospital, where she was quickly earning a reputation as the kind of nurse who could calm any scared parent and coax a smile from even the sickest children. Adrian had kept his word about respecting her boundaries. He'd undergone the ethics investigation, completed the community service the board had required, and started attending therapy to understand why he'd thought his behavior was acceptable. Every month, he sent a brief letter updating her on his progress and requesting nothing in return. Zara read the letters but didn't respond. She wasn't ready yet, and she respected her own healing process enough not to rush it. But 3 days after graduation, she found herself writing back. Adrian. Thank you for your letters. I can see that you're working to understand what went wrong and to become a better person. I appreciate that. Elena is healthy and happy. She has your eyes but my stubborn streak. I think you'd like her. I'm not ready for you to meet her yet, but I'm not ruling it out forever. Keep doing the work. Keep being honest. Keep choosing to be better. Maybe someday we'll find our way to something real. Zara. P.S. I still make terrible coffee. Some things never change. She sent the letter before she could second-guess herself, then picked up her daughter and went for a walk in the park where she and Adrian had spent so many afternoons when she'd still believed in their impossible love story. As she pushed Elena's stroller along the familiar paths, Zara reflected on how much had changed. She was no longer the naive young woman who'd volunteered for a research study without reading the fine print. She was no longer someone who needed saving or fixing or studying. She was Zara Williams, nurse, mother, survivor. She was a woman who'd been broken and had chosen to heal herself. A woman who'd been betrayed and had chosen to trust again, carefully and on her own terms. She was free. And for the first time in a very long time, that felt like enough. The future stretched ahead of her, full of possibilities she was strong enough to choose for herself. Maybe someday that future would include Adrian, if he proved he deserved a place in it. Maybe it would include someone else entirely, someone who would love her and Elena without conditions or studies or hidden agendas. Or maybe it would just be her and Elena and the life they'd built together, and that would be beautiful too. As the sun set over the city, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink, Elena woke up and looked at her mother with those familiar green eyes, gurgling happily. "What do you think, little one?" Zara asked, lifting her daughter from the stroller. "Ready to go home?" Elena reached for her mother's face, tiny fingers tangling in Zara's hair, and smiled the kind of pure, uncomplicated smile that reminded Zara why she'd fought so hard to get to this moment. Home. Not the apartment she'd once shared with dreams of Adrian, but the new place she'd chosen for herself and Elena. A place where love was honest, where trust was earned, where happiness wasn't dependent on anyone else's choices. A place where Zara Williams was exactly who she was meant to be. As they walked toward their future, Zara couldn't help but smile. After everything she'd been through, the deception, the heartbreak, the long journey back to herself, she'd learned the most important lesson of all. She didn't need anyone else to complete her story. She was whole all by herself. What have you learned from your own journey through heartbreak and healing? How did you discover your own strength when everything seemed lost? And that, she thought as Elena dozed against her shoulder, was the most powerful kind of love story there was.